Part 2. War and Rebellion. Looking back now, those years beside the young king seem brighter than they truly were. Memory has a way of polishing old victories while hiding the cracks beneath them. We travelled across England and France, surrounded by banners, cheering crowds, and the admiration of noble courts. Gold flowed freely after successful tournaments. Songs were written about famous knights. Young squires followed us with wide eyes, dreaming of glory and honour. For a time, I believed life would continue exactly that way forever. I was young, strong, respected, and surrounded by powerful friends. It felt as though the future belonged to us. But kingdoms are fragile things. Beneath every celebration lurked politics, ambition, and resentment. Henry the young king possessed a crown, yet held little actual authority. His father, King Henry II, remained firmly in control of the vast empire stretching across England and much of France. The frustration ate at the prince year after year. Noblemen whispered in his ear, encouraging his anger and promising support should he challenge his father. Some sought power, others desired revenge. Many simply hoped to profit from conflict. What began as quiet conversations in candlelit halls slowly became open defiance. When word spread that the young king intended to rebel against his father, every knight faced a choice. Loyalty was never simple in those days. Men often owed service to multiple lords. Families found themselves divided between opposing sides. Friends suddenly became enemies. For me, however, the decision felt clear. I had sworn my loyalty to the young king. He had trusted me when few others had. Whatever lay ahead, I would ride beside him. The first months of rebellion felt strange, almost unreal. Messengers galloped between castles carrying sealed orders. Blacksmiths worked through the night repairing armor and forging spearheads. Grain was stockpiled behind fortified walls. Villagers whispered rumors in marketplaces while soldiers gathered beneath competing banners. Everyone sensed that war was approaching. Nobody knew how terrible it would become. When the fighting finally erupted, it swept across the countryside like wildfire. Villages emptied as families fled approaching armies. Smoke rose from distant farms. Roads became crowded with refugees dragging carts loaded with whatever possessions they could save. Scouts vanished into forests searching for enemy movements while raiding parties struck without warning. The world I had known through tournaments disappeared almost overnight. This was no sport. There were no spectators, no celebrations, and no guarantees that captured men would survive to pay a ransom. Real war felt entirely different from tournament combat. In tournaments, a defeated knight might lose money, pride, or a horse. In battle, he lost his life. Every engagement carried genuine consequences. A lance striking the wrong place could punch through armor. A frightened horse could throw its rider beneath charging hooves. A single mistake could erase decades of training in an instant. The excitement remained, but it walked hand in hand with fear. I remember one particular morning when our forces approached an enemy position hidden beneath a thick blanket of fog. Visibility stretched only a few yards in any direction. Horses shifted nervously while men checked weapon straps and tightened helmet buckles for the 10th time. Nobody spoke much. Before battle, confidence often gives way to reflection. Every man wonders whether he will survive the coming hours. Every man thinks of home. Every man imagines the worst. The signal finally came. Slowly, our line began moving forward through the mist. At first, there was only the sound of hooves and rattling armor. Then dark shapes emerged ahead. The shapes became riders. The riders became enemies. Suddenly, the battlefield exploded into violence. Horses collided with tremendous force, spears shattered, men screamed. Steel rang against steel from every direction. I struck one rider hard enough to send him crashing from the saddle, only to find another charging toward me moments later. Training took control. There was no time to think, only react, attack, defend, survive. When the fighting finally ended, the field looked nothing like it had that morning. Bodies lay scattered across churned mud. Broken weapons covered the ground. Wounded men cried out for water while priests moved among them, offering prayers. Victory belonged to us that day, but standing among the dead made celebration difficult. Many of those men had awakened expecting to see another sunrise. Now they would never return home. As the war continued, stories about my actions spread further than I realized. Some accounts exaggerated the truth, but enough were accurate to strengthen my growing reputation. Certain knights began seeking opportunities to challenge me directly. They believed defeating William Marshall would bring instant fame. A few nearly succeeded. Most learned that experience earned through years of combat is difficult to overcome. One encounter nearly ended my life. During a chaotic engagement, I pursued a group of retreating enemy riders farther than I should have. The chase led beyond the protection of my companions and directly into a trap. Several mounted knights emerged from behind a wooded ridge and cut off my escape. For a brief moment, I realized I was entirely alone. Common sense suggested surrender. Most men would have accepted capture and hoped to negotiate a ransom later. Instead, I lowered my lance and charged. The impact shattered the weapon in my hands and nearly threw me from the saddle. My horse crashed into their formation, creating just enough confusion for me to draw my sword. What followed remains a blur even now. I remember steel striking armor. I remember mud flying beneath pounding hooves. I remember shouting so loudly my throat burned. Most of all, I remember refusing to stop. Eventually, the surviving attackers lost their nerve and fled. By the time friendly riders reached me, my shield was destroyed, my armor dented beyond recognition, and my horse bleeding from multiple wounds. Somehow, we had survived. Experiences like that change a man. Each battle hardened me further. Each close call reinforced a lesson I first learned as a frightened child. Courage is not the absence of fear. Every warrior feels fear. Courage is moving forward despite it. Courage is refusing to surrender when every instinct tells you to run. Throughout those difficult years, my loyalty to the young king never wavered. We traveled constantly between castles and strongholds, gathering support wherever we could. Long rides through rain and mud became routine. Sleep often came in short bursts. Food was whatever could be found. Every decision carried consequences. Yet despite the hardships, I respected him deeply. He possessed flaws like any man, but he inspired genuine devotion among those who served him. Unfortunately, war rewards neither loyalty nor devotion. As the rebellion dragged on, fortunes shifted repeatedly. Victories were followed by setbacks. Allies disappeared. Resources dwindled. The confidence that had fueled the uprising slowly faded. Men who once spoke openly of triumph now worried about survival. Rumors spread of disease moving through various camps. Food shortages became increasingly common. Even experienced veterans sensed that something was changing. Then came the summer that altered everything. The young king fell ill. At first, few people worried. Campaigning life exposed soldiers and nobles alike to countless illnesses. Most recovered after several difficult days. This time was different. The fever worsened rapidly. Physicians tried every remedy they knew. Priests offered prayers. Holy relics were brought to his bedside. Nothing helped. Day by day, his strength faded. I remained beside him whenever possible. The confident prince who had once thundered across tournament fields now struggled simply to sit upright. His face grew pale, his voice weakened. Watching it happen felt unreal. Men like him seemed larger than life when viewed from a distance. Yet sickness cares little for crowns or titles. One evening, he called several of us close. Firelight flickered across his face as he spoke quietly about mistakes, regrets, and responsibilities left unfinished. Gone was the youthful arrogance that had once defined him. In its place stood a man confronting mortality. The atmosphere in that room felt heavier than any battlefield I had ever entered. Not long afterward, Henry the young king died. The news spread quickly across the kingdom. Some mourned sincerely. Others viewed it as little more than another political event. For me, it felt personal. I had ridden beside him for years, fought beside him, shared victories and hardships alike. Now he was gone. The rebellion effectively died with him, and the world continued forward as it always does. Standing beside his body, I learned a lesson no tournament victory could teach. Glory fades, wealth disappears, power changes hands endlessly. What remains are the choices a man makes and the loyalty he shows when circumstances become difficult. I did not know it then, but my greatest adventures still lay ahead. New kings would rise, greater wars would come. I would fight alongside legends, survive impossible battles, and witness events that would shape the future of England itself. The road before me was only beginning, and it would soon lead toward dangers far greater than anything I had yet faced.